Right, now in a related development, the CDD Afrobarometer report we're just talking about revealed that 28% of Ghanaian youth would like to migrate to other countries. The survey, which sampled the views of 2,400 Ghanaians across the country, stated that most of these Ghanaians want to emigrate to find work and escape economic hardships.
Almost about a third of Ghanaians said in the next 1 or 2 years they hope to leave the country, even though they've not started preparations. We also found about 28% also saying for them they have even started preparation and they are thinking of leaving, and actually 8% are working towards leaving this country. And then when we follow up to ask them about what factors are pushing them out of this country, the economic factors stood out than social and political reasons. Economic factors in the sense that majority of them said they want to leave to seek greener pastures in terms of getting work outside the country. And then also some said they want to leave to escape the economic hardship. And then others also said they want to leave in order to have better business prospects. And then when we ask them which destination they will want to be, it appears the Ghanaians who are thinking of leaving, majority are not even thinking of staying on the continent. They are leaving Ghana and leaving Africa, because most of them are thinking of moving to the America and other countries.
Because what they want, they will even get it in Africa, I suppose.
Well, that is one thing that we cannot say for sure, okay. But there are a few, less than a tenth or so, who want to relocate to other African countries, but the majority are looking at continents outside Africa. So that to me is an issue of brain drain. We've not yet done the analysis in terms of education to know what is the level of education of those who want to live and where they are going. But
there's an age limit.
But there is still that element of brain drain, because if you have your human resource who are thinking of leaving your country, then we are losing some kind of value, and this is something we need to look at critically.
Now, in the face of all this that we've been talking about, it has become critical for Ghana to address the issue of migration, which is threatening to rob Ghana of valuable human resources. To help address the issue, JoyNews will on November 30 be holding a forum on migration in collaboration with DWTV. I'm joined in the studio by our editor Martha Kwentilakwa and Thomas Mosh, head of DW Hausa service. Welcome, lady and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Thomas, let me begin with you. Being a native of a destination country, a place that some of these Ghanaians who want to emigrate from our country would want to be in, how do you find all these reports you're hearing of persons trying to leave our shores, persons intending to leave our shores?
Well, generally, as you might know, the situation in Germany has changed since 2015, when we received a lot of refugees from Syria and other Mid-East countries. And this influx of around about 800,000 people within a very short time created two different perceptions. On the one hand, there were a lot of Germans, and I would still say the majority, who received them well and said, yes, we have to help them. They are in a terrible situation, and we would probably do the same thing and run away from that situation if we were in that same situation. On the other hand, it also raised a lot of concern among a large minority of Germans, because they thought, well, if so many people are coming in within such a short time, and there are more to be expected, because these numbers which you have just mentioned about the Afrobarometer are also known in Germany, of course, that a lot of young people in many countries have the intention to leave because of out of frustration and seeking greener pastures. So because of knowing about all this, a lot of people are concerned, since Germany is generally a very popular country among migrants. I think after the United States nowadays, we receive most migrants worldwide. So when it comes to working labor migrants, not refugees. Refugees in Africa, you have many more refugees than we have in Europe. So with this, there is concern what might happen to our country if all these people want to come to Europe, and many of them want to come to Germany. So that's the concern, and that's why Germany as a country is very much interested in helping other countries to create perspectives for their young populations.
Right. So, Martha, we've been covering some of these stories from here for months, if not years. What are some of the patterns you've noticed or you've observed in these stories?
Okay, so yesterday I was just trying to put some of these stories together we'll use at our Migration Dilemma Town Hall, and the issues are not very different from what was recorded in 2015, an interview one of my colleagues, Abla D'Souza, did with some of these returnee migrants, and what is happening now. It's not very different from what the Afrobarometer is talking about. They are seeking greener pastures. Mostly they don't want to stay on the continent, they want to go beyond, and so they use all the dangerous routes to get out of wherever they think, to get to wherever they want to go. Unfortunately, they know the dangers ahead, but they don't care. And so for some of the interviews I was listening to, they know they went through a lot. They got to Libya, they couldn't continue, they were arrested and deported, but they will try again. And they tell me the situation is more of a push factor because they don't have jobs here. And they don't have jobs, they are seeking greener pastures without any certificate. So they are ready to do any menial job just to be able to get money. And their comparison is that here the money is not very, in their language, heavy. They want money that can take care of their issues, not the Ghanaian cedi. So they rather go there, struggle, get some money, bring it back home and come and settle. But most of them go, they get to the middle of nowhere, they come back and they still want to go. The narrative has not changed. More people, and I'm not surprised that the Afrobarometer says 28% of the youth who want to leave. Because trust me, they've heard all the stories, all the horrific ones we're talking about, all the dangers ahead, but they are bent on leaving. And their policy is, they better die trying.
Right, it's very, very interesting, that point, and I'll come back to you on that. Thomas, you were talking about how the majority of Germans still accept some of these people, but some of these migrants who come in, but we still have a rising minority of persons who may not, and we saw that play out in the last election with the rise of the AFD. And tell us a bit about that and how the issues of immigration has become a major factor in European politics.
Yeah, I think the turning point, at least in Germany, indeed was the year 2015 with the refugees from the Mideast. And most of them are Muslims, and that's also for many people in Germany something they are a bit reserved about, because there are all these news about terrorism and extremism and oppression of women and whatever you have there. And of course, since then, we had some incidents, some terrorist attacks, some being prevented, some other attacks where Muslims and especially Muslim refugees were involved. So all this gave a good foundation for this AFD party that has taken this topic and said, we have to block immigration as such, especially Muslim immigration, and they have gained about 13% in the last elections, which is still much lower than in other European countries, but still for Germany this is a new development.
About the highest in a number of years.
Yes, definitely.
It's showing for the AFD.
We've never had such a large number of votes for right-wing parties since the end of the Second World War. So, and it's the first time after many years that such a party was able to enter into parliament, where we have a 5% barrier which you have to overcome if you want to gain seats. So it's the very first time such a party has gained more than 5% of the votes. So all this is a lot of concern, but at the moment the issue is a bit calming down, because the numbers of refugees have gone down drastically. Because the main avenue coming from Turkey through Greece and the Balkans has been blocked. And that's also, of course, one of the reasons why more people are trying to come through Libya, where Germany is not so directly affected, because if they achieve their journey, they will end up in Italy first. And so now Italy is once again a big issue.
One of the biggest destinations. But do you think that blocking those routes is the best solution to that issue of migration? Or
I think nobody really believes that this is the best solution. There are some people who think, well, we have to do that because otherwise we will just be overrun and we will not be able to deal with the situation anymore. Even people who are not against Muslims or other foreigners or so on, they say, well, we need to have, we can only digest a certain number of refugees in a certain time. So we have to somehow regulate the influx, even for those people who maybe have the right to come because of their situation. So the discussion is diverse, but everybody, even the right-wing people, know blocking is not the perspective, because there will always be the efforts that people will try to overcome these
and it's not really a German-specific problem; it's a European problem.
It's a European problem. And if you look at the Spanish enclaves in Morocco, Melilla and Ceuta, these two cities on the African continent, which have put up high barriers, all technology you can imagine to block people from coming in, and still people are trying it, and some of them they succeed. So this shows very well you can do whatever you want,
but people will still want to leave.
People still want to leave, and still people will get there. So even the right-wing people in Europe, and especially in Germany, have understood we need to do something about the situation
at the roots.
Yes.
Okay, so let me come to Martha on that, especially on that point about people still wanting to leave. I recently interviewed two ladies.
Yes.
One of them was a community health nurse here in Ghana, who had heard horrific stories.
She had a job, and she still left.
Exactly.
And she couldn't give any good reason for leaving. She left to go and work as a domestic worker in the Gulf states, and it didn't make any sense. If she was, the other one was a seamstress, remember?
Exactly.
And so she also had her trade. She could have worked here, but she said it sounded more attractive, considering how much she was going to get at the end of every month. Unfortunately, they all came back empty-handed, nothing. Luckily, they came in one big piece, so we have to take them and resettle them. But adding to what Thomas was saying, tackling the issue at the end of the receiving countries is not enough. And that is why the German government is coming to Ghana and other African countries to deal with the problem at the root. So if they are able to understand, and we are able to understand, that going there is not the solution to the problem, is getting something meaningful to do and doing it well, because you can succeed in Ghana. You don't need to travel to another country
and have to go through all these challenges.
Yes.
I mean, we've covered such horrific stories.
Horrific stories, exactly.
Remind us about some of these.
You know, the last interview you did, for instance, you had these three ladies, and they were talking about how they went through a lot to get there. Some of them were actually beaten at the border to confess that they were going to the Gulf states, and they denied, because that's what they've been told by their agents. So they kept it to themselves. They suffered all the beating and still went through, only to get there and be maltreated there.
Sexually abused in some cases.
And they ran to detention centers. Luckily, they came back alive, but the stories they recounted were very horrific. How some died, and you have so many Ghanaians packed in morgues. You don't know where they come from. How do you bring them back?
One of them actually told me that she saw someone being murdered.
Yes, in the house she worked in. And those are the horrific stories from the Gulf states. But if you look at those who were able to cross and they get to sea and the boats capsized, then one of them was telling us when the boats capsized, only 2 survived. Everyone on that boat died. And he saw all that. And when he was asked whether he would want to go again, he said yes. Why? He said now he's gained more experience, so he'll be able to go further than he went. And to think that they have a ring in Ghana that works around it, so they give you to an agent, the agent will pay your way through. So when you get to a point that you are stuck, you can actually call home and they can mobilize money from home and still send it to you for you to continue the journey. So when you get to Europe, no matter what, you make it. It's terrible. I don't know how long it will take, but we need to work towards disabusing their minds that they need to stay back and help us build our country and help survive. They can survive, they can make it big here. No place like home for me.
I know. At least you won't get food to eat anywhere. But I mean, by the way, Thomas, I want us to start talking about tomorrow's conference. But before we get into that, the root cause of all of these is the economic conditions. I mean, even at the basic level of someone who may not seem to be so abreast of the macroeconomics of it all, they talk about the currency, the weight of our currency, and the fact that if you go and work outside the country and you change it into Ghana cedis, you get a lot of cedis. So at a very basic level, there is the need to work more on the economies of not just Ghana, but the developing countries in general. Beyond these ideological exercises and these conferences, do you think there is a space for more economic partnership to try and improve the condition in these African countries?
Generally, I think there is space. The question is just whether, especially the European governments, are ready to open this space. Nowadays, I mean, we have the Euro-African Summit at the moment in Abidjan going on, and one has the impression the Europeans are basically most interested in creating ways of preventing further migration, while the Africans are interested in opening up these trade spaces in order to be able to develop their economies further. And one has the impression that both sides are not really coming very closely together on this. And if you look at the previous years of negotiations between the European Union and some African countries, it was not very successful because European governments are broadly not willing to open up their markets for African goods. On the contrary, there are still exports of basic goods to African countries that destroy markets here. If you look at like tomato market or chicken or other examples, or the frozen foods, the exploitation of the fishing grounds, and so on. So you can name a lot of examples that show how the European economy is contributing to the problems here. So it's not all homemade, what we are talking about. And I think that's the big challenge. Maybe, my hope indeed with all these migration crises is that the negotiation weight of the African countries has improved because the Europeans are seeing your populations here as a threat. Which, first of all, doesn't sound nice, but on the other hand, your governments at least have something they can say, okay, if you want our people to stay here, you have to really come up with something that isn't more than just a few crumbles from your table.
It brings me to a point that our presidents raised about how Ghana and Ivory Coast, you know, have about 60 to 70% of the raw cocoa market, but we have about 67% of the chocolate industry. And it's about time that we saw partnerships between nations like this in negotiating. Since you're talking about how African leaders must negotiate better, carry more weight at the negotiating table, would you expect some of our leaders to form blocks in talking to, because I mean the EU is a bloc, isn't it? It's a regional bloc, in speaking to these European leaders?
Definitely, the more you cooperate, the heavier is your weight. I think many African governments have understood that, and they have been trying that to negotiate with the EU, for example, within the ECOWAS bloc. But we have also seen that the Europeans are trying to sabotage that and have started negotiating with single governments. And then, of course, you get back to the African side and say, okay, if there is no solidarity among the African governments that say, no, we are not negotiating with anybody outside ECOWAS, then, of course, this strategy could work. And I think that's Yeah, that's a bit part of the whole problem. You have interests on both sides. You have the interest, which you could say, of the African countries, but you also have interest among the African elites that are maybe different from what the population's interest could be. I think within democracies like Ghana, for example, you have a much better possibility of getting what the people want into the policy of the government. If you look at other countries where that is much more difficult, like Cameroon, for example, there is hardly any possibility for the population to really influence the position of the government, because the government has been there forever and there's no
they don't look like that way they do it.
And the frustration is even bigger. At least here in Ghana, you have seen changes in power, and people know, okay, if we are not satisfied, we can still vote people out. So all this is coming together, and of course you have a lot of diversity within the African countries. So the more cooperation is there, I think, among African countries, the better your position is.
Trust me, our president would love to hear you say this, because it's one of, I mean, since he was a presidential candidate, I remember him, I can quote him from as far back as 2014, making points about sub-regional integration, trade partnerships. You know, it costs more to export to the US than to export to another African country. That's something to think about. But Martha, I wish I could continue this forever, but we have to talk about the migration dilemma, the conference tomorrow. Martha, what should we expect tomorrow?
Expect the Minister for Labor, Employment and Labor Relations, Minister for Information. The two of them will be there. You have International Organization for Migration representative, one of the project managers. You have a migrant returnee, and then you have a lot of people coming there to tell
anyone can
their
come
story. It's open. You can be there at the University of Ghana. It's a main auditorium that the Institute for Statistical, Social and Economic Research main auditorium. We can cater for you. Just come in and listen firsthand, get the account. We have more migrant returnees coming, those who voluntarily came back home and those who were deported. They're all coming to tell their stories, and we'll find out if we can deter others from embarking on that dangerous journey. So it's 5 p.m. We're going to go live on TV, on radio, online at 5:30 p.m. You can't miss it. You just have to be there.
Exactly. You can't really. Martha says you can't. It's very important. Thomas, a few words on the conference. On the town hall. It's a town hall meeting.
It's open.
So it's open. So, Thomas, your words on the town hall.
Yeah, I indeed hope that a lot of people will attend and that we'll get a lively discussion, because our experience is this is not the first thing we town hall debate on this issue we are organizing in West Africa, and all the debates have really triggered a lot of debate within the respective countries because of the transmissions that are going on through our partner stations, and I hope this will also help to
which are some of the countries
accelerate the discussion here in Ghana. We have done it in the Gambia, in Abidjan, in Cote d'Ivoire, in Conakry, in Dakar, in Niamey, in Niger, and in Jos in Nigeria.
Been around.
Not always me, but
DW has been around.
Well, DW has been around. So where's the funding coming from?
The funding for this project is coming from the Ministry of Foreign Relations of Germany. And the idea has been developed by us. We have been producing reports like you did also about all the different stops from the origins of the migrants towards Europe. We have been doing a lot of radio reports, online reports, and discussions on social media like Facebook, but very important really, these town hall debates on the ground. We have got a lot of positive feedback on that.
Well, and I hope you take the feedback about the role of European governments in causing this back to the funders. Thank you very much, Thomas Mosh. Excellent discussion. Martha Kwenzelakwa, one of the people who makes it happen here in JoyNews, in case you don't know.